Welcome to this explainer. There's this massive myth out there that evolution is this incredibly sluggish, crawling process, something that's just forever trapped in dusty fossils and deep time. We usually think of it as something that takes millions of years, right? Always happening somewhere you aren't standing to see it. But the truth? It's happening rapidly, literally right before our eyes. And the coolest part is we finally have the tools and the data to actually watch it happen in real time.
Here's how we're breaking it all down today. We'll start with the evolution stopwatch, move into surviving nature's extremes, examine adapting to human environments, fact-check the subway mosquito myth, and finally, face the cost of survival.
So let's just dive right in by questioning everything you thought you knew about the speed of biology. If we assume evolution takes an entire ice age to unfold, well, we're going to miss the incredible transformations happening in our own lifetimes. Let's look at a case that was actually caught on camera.
Part 1. The Evolution Stopwatch, featuring the Italian wall lizard.
Okay, so back in 1971, researchers moved 5 breeding pairs of Italian wall lizards to a totally empty neighboring island. And because of a war, they were basically forgotten for decades. When scientists finally went back, they found something absolutely incredible. The lizards on the old island, still your typical bug eaters with normal lizard juts. But the new island was covered in tough plants, so the isolated lizards didn't just casually change their diet, they went completely vegetarian. Their heads got bigger, their bites got stronger. Actually, scratch that, it goes even deeper. They literally grew a brand new organ. They developed cecal valves, which are these muscular little gates that turn part of the intestine into a fermentation chamber just for digesting tough plant matter. It's like their gut filed a request for new hardware and it just got approved.
And here is the kicker. All of this incredible biological rewiring, it took just 36 years. Think about that for a second. In roughly a single human career, literally less time than it takes to pay off a standard mortgage, these lizards settled centuries of scientific debate. They proved for sure that evolution doesn't just run on a calendar of eons, it runs on a stopwatch.
Moving on to Section 2, Surviving Nature's Extremes, Predators and Hurricanes.
Okay, picture this. You're a male cricket on the Hawaiian island of Kauai. You really have one job, sing to attract a mate. But a parasitic fly arrived from North America, and it hunts by sound. It hears your chirp, drops larvae on you, and eats you alive. Singing became a literal death sentence. So to survive, the crickets completely threw out the rulebook. They evolved flat wings, entirely losing the ridges that make that classic chirp. They went completely silent. Now, a silent male can't advertise for a mate, right? But he can quietly stand next to a singing male and sort of intercept females. And the craziest part of this whole shebang, the vast majority of the island's males made this drastic physical change in under 20 generations. That's about 5 years.
And we see this exact same crazy pace in the waters of Trinidad. Scientists physically moved guppies from really dangerous predator-filled pools upstream into safe waters, and they started a stopwatch. It took just 11 years for those transplanted fish to completely rewrite their genetics. In safe waters, they just slowed down their lives. They started maturing later, having fewer but bigger babies. The males even grew brighter colors because, hey, they no longer had to hide. 11 years to completely rewrite how a species lives and dies. Just wild.
But wait. The stopwatch ticks even faster. Let's talk about 2017, when Hurricanes Irma and Maria totally flattened the Caribbean. When scientists measured the surviving Anole lizards just weeks later, they found a very, very specific build. Incredibly, a single afternoon of 100-mile-per-hour winds was enough to instantly select for lizards with larger toe pads, longer front legs, and shorter back legs. Basically, the exact physical kit you'd require to clamp onto a branch while a Category 5 hurricane tries to rip you off. The weak-gripped lizards, they just blew away. That is evolution measured not in years, but in hours.
Which brings us to Section 3, Adapting to Human Environments, or our Accidental Impact.
So we've seen how nature drives change, but human activity accidentally does the exact same thing. You've probably heard the classic textbook story of the peppered moth. During the Industrial Revolution, soot covered the trees, and the moths turned black to stay camouflaged. We all know that one, right? But textbooks usually stop right there. What they usually skip is the fact that the evolution completely reversed. After the 1956 Clean Air Act in Britain, the soot washed away, the trees went pale again, and that dark moth population quietly collapsed. They evolved right back to their pale forms. That is 2 complete evolutionary reversals inside human record keeping. And then, there are bedbugs.
We have accidentally built a superpest. We nearly wiped them out in the 1950s with heavy chemical spraying, but the survivors? They evolved to stack 3 brutal defenses. First, they cranked up their internal enzymes to literally break the poison down. Second, they rewired their nerves to simply ignore the chemicals. And third, they actually grew a thicker, denser outer shell so the poison can't even get through the front door.
It really illustrates this massive trap of human intervention. We didn't lose the war on bedbugs by giving up. We lost it by relentlessly training them. Every single round of chemical spraying acted as this perfect filter, killing the normal bugs and leaving only the toughest, weirdest survivors to breed.
We're even messing with the hardwired GPS inside birds. The black-capped songbird historically flew southwest from Central Europe to Spain for the winter. But recently, folks in Britain started leaving out lots of garden bird feeders, and British winters got milder. So what happened? In just a few decades, a huge chunk of the black-capped population changed their compass heading to fly northwest to Britain instead. And they didn't just change their route. Their bodies are actively reshaping. They're developing narrower beaks and different wing shapes to perfectly match their new destination. We accidentally opened a winter resort and completely rewrote a species' flight plan.
Even the noise of our cities is an evolutionary pressure. In San Francisco, white-crowned sparrows historically had to sing at a really high, thin pitch just to be heard over the low-frequency rumble of traffic. But during the 2020 lockdowns, city traffic just vanished. Noise dropped by a massive 7 decibels, and within mere weeks, the sparrows dropped their high-pitched songs to a much softer, fuller tune. The city isn't just where they live, it's a soundtrack they are actively remixing their biology to survive in.
All right, let's hit Section 4, the subway mosquito myth. Time for some DNA fact-checking.
Let's take a quick breather to fact-check a really famous urban legend. The story goes that a mosquito got trapped down on the London Underground tunnels, and over about 200 years of isolation, it evolved into a brand new, completely unique species that strictly bites humans instead of birds. It sounds like a fantastic story of rapid urban evolution, right?
But yeah, it's mostly a myth. In 2025, an extensive DNA sequence of these mosquitoes acted as a deeply unimpressed fact-checker. It proved that the underground mosquito lineage actually traces back over 1,000 years, likely to early farming societies in the Middle East. This subway didn't create a new mosquito in 2 centuries, it just provided an ancient human-loving insect with a very famous modern address. It's a great reminder that while evolution is undeniably fast, we still have to read the genetic fine print.
Finally, we arrive at Section 5, the cost of survival. Intentional human impacts.
When we actually try to force selection, when human evolutionary pressure is deliberate, the reality gets pretty sobering. Take the Atlantic cod. Historically, this was a giant fish that fed entire continents. But because our commercial fishing nets are specifically designed to scoop up the biggest, oldest fish first, the ones that survive are the ones that happen to mature young and stay small, slipping right through the mesh. Generation after generation of this has quite literally taught the ocean to stop making giant Atlantic cod. Just look at the drop. Their maturity length has shrunk drastically from 80 centimeters down to roughly 65. We are biologically downsizing our oceans, totally by design.
But the starkest, probably the hardest picture of human-driven evolution comes from Gorongasa National Park in Africa. During the Mozambique Civil War, from roughly 1977 to 1992, the park saw relentless, catastrophic ivory poaching. Poachers were hunting elephants purely for their tusks to fund the war, and this forced an unimaginable biological cost onto the entire species.
In a span of just about 15 years, the elephant population there plummeted by 90%. 90%. The only elephants left alone by the poachers were the rare, naturally tuskless females, simply because they had no ivory to take. Those were the individuals who survived the war, and those were the individuals who bred the next generation. But here's the devastating catch to that survival. The trait for tusklessness is tied to a specific gene on the X chromosome, and research shows that this same gene appears to be absolutely lethal to male calves in the womb. So, because of our relentless poaching, we forced an entire generation of endangered daughters to be born without tusks, the very thing that got their mothers killed, while simultaneously suppressing the birth rate of male elephants. We directly authored a genetic bottleneck.
So what does this all mean for us? Evolution isn't just hiding out in the fossil record. It isn't just something that happened millions of years ago to the dinosaurs. It's reacting to us right now, today, in our cities, our oceans, and our savannas. The stopwatch is running and the hand is moving faster than we ever imagined. The only question left is, now that we can actually see it happening, how will we choose to shape the future of nature? Thanks for joining me on this explainer. Keep questioning what you see around you and keep learning.